When my kids were little, do you guys remember those little golden books? They had a bunch of those when they were little, and one of their favorites was about spring, and all of the little animals were so excited. And I don't remember the whole story, but I remember the beginning, and they'd say, "Spring," said the frogs, "Spring," said the pollywog. That's how I've been feeling too. So I wanted to show you guys, look what happened in just the course of it seems like just a week. My little egg pots, they're already sprouting. These are my Beef Master tomatoes. And you can see there's about 3 little plants coming up in there. So I'm ready to separate them into cups. And to do that, I just literally tear the egg apart, but I keep it. So like you can see here, I left one, it's still in the egg. I'm just going to put it in this dirt, cover it up, and it'll get stronger and have a lot more room to move here. And I'm working on hardening them up too. And what that means is in the daytime, I'm bringing them outside and letting them get used to the weather and to the wind and to the sun and to the cold. That's what's going to make them strong and disease resistant, rather than if I just left them sheltered in the house. So I'm putting them in my cups, and probably in another week or so, we'll do another update and you guys can see how big they've gotten. But it's just real simple. You just put them in a cup. They're still in the egg. That egg is going to give them lots of calcium and a great head start. And now they'll have more room to move. How's your spring been going so far? Did everybody have a nice Easter? I had a wonderful Easter with my family. A couple days later, I went out into the garden and I have straw all over my strawberries for the winter. And I was sitting on the ground because, as you guys know, I waller in my garden, as my husband says, I waller. So I don't stand there with a hoe or anything like that. I lay in it. And I was out there with my hands just cleaning off that straw. And all of a sudden I hear beep, 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 beep. And I jumped back and I thought it was mice. But it was actually the sweetest little nest of baby rabbits you've ever seen. Learned a lesson with that because they didn't make it. So what I learned was I'm not going to waller like that when I have straw down anymore. Instead, I'm going to make sure that I'm very careful when I'm pulling my straw back and that I'm wearing gloves. Because Mama Rabbit must have smelled, you know, there were humans around and she never came back and they didn't make it. And I just felt awful. I did, after I found them, I covered them back up as best I could and I didn't use my hands, but they still didn't make it. So, you know, just a little lesson there in nature and in life, and I won't do it again. We still haven't had our last frost yet, so it's too early for me to be planting anything out in the garden yet. I have cleaned off my perennial garden. I've been working out in the flowers, but I haven't planted anything yet. I got kind of carried away. I got a little too excited last week. We had a day that was in the 60s and gorgeous. So what did I do? I went running out and I bought plants. And so now, ever since then, I've been trying to keep them alive. So I know it's so hard not to get excited when we get that warm weather, but they're still doing good, and I'll get them in the ground in a couple days. And I bought some special like netting that is supposed to keep them warm and keep them free of pests, you know, like rabbits. So, you know, I'm so excited to get started with my garden this year. And that's something I wanted to update you guys on. Was a health update. So, if you guys remember, in November, I found out that I was sick. And I found out that I had a special kind of leukemia, because I'm so special. And it's the kind that like only 1% of people in the United States get per year. It's called B-cell something. Leukemia, CLL, B-cell, CLL. So in the matter of from November until just recently, I was told different things from different specialists. One thing they were consistent on was that my prognosis wasn't very good. And if I didn't have a stem cell transplant, I had 2 years or less left to live. Which I know it's hard to believe, right? Because look at me, I'm fat and sassy. But that's the thing about blood diseases, is you can't see what's going on the inside. And that was hard for me to accept too, because I kept thinking if I had a lump or a bump or something like that, we could just go in and take it out and I'd be great. But with a blood disease, it's everywhere. Well, so in the meantime, I have been going up to Chicago about once a month and having tests done, and they were in the process of looking for a donor for me. And I was supposed to go to get that done the end of June or like the 1st of July. Actually, I was supposed to go last Friday and have some more workups done so that when the time came and they called and said, let's do it, I would be ready to go. And my specialist from Chicago, who, by the way, I have come to find out is one of only like 5 specialists in the United States that even is an expert in this kind of thing. So he called me and he said, Molly, would you like some good news? And I'm like, I could always use some good news. And he said, we're not going to do the transplant. Well, you can imagine, of course I'm excited and I'm happy, because that is really, really hard on your body. Not only that, I would have to be away from home for about 6 months and live in Chicago. And then when I get home, everything has to be very sterile. You guys, I still have symptoms though. Everything has to be very sterile. So of course I was happy that I didn't have to have that done, but I was also scared and wanted an explanation as to what had changed. You know, the same doctor told me 2 weeks earlier, after he had gone over the procedure with me for the transplant, I asked him, I said, what happens if I don't get the transplant? Because it sounded awful. What if I just keep taking my oral chemo meds? Then what's going to happen? And he said, then you have 2 years or less to live. And I said, well, how can that be? Because I feel healthy. I mean, I look healthy. And his explanation was because my bone marrow is full of cancer cells, and eventually it would choke out my bone marrow and I would get an infection, which made sense. So I was wanting to know what the heck has changed in just 2 weeks that all of a sudden now I'm not going to die in 2 years. And I also was afraid, hey, don't give up on me now and just throw me out there to the wolves, which he would never do. So I'm talking as a scared patient, okay? He would never do it. He's a professional. So the way he explained it is, I had a test come back the day before, and yes, I still have 70% cancer in my bone marrow, and it's still the problematic B cell, which is unusual. The difference is there's something else in my blood, red blood cells, the size of the cells, the distance apart, my genetic markers. They look at all of those things. And there's something in there that is balancing out the growth, the rapidness of the B cells. So they're wanting to hold off. And they're wanting me to just keep treating this with oral chemo meds. So that's what we're going to do. So the plan of treatment now at this point is that I'm going to be continually treated with my oral chemo meds. And as far as side effects, it's a very strong chemotherapy drug. It's called ibrutinib. Some of the side effects I've had are headaches. I had a headache that literally lasted 5 days. And I thought, this can't be, this is awful. Well, I went on YouTube and I found another patient like me who has the same type of cancer as I do. They take the same drug as I do. And he said he had a 9-day headache. So it's a side effect of the drug because it's that strong. So my doctor has since given me some very strong headache medicine that I'm supposed to take when I feel those coming on. Nausea is also a side effect that I have to deal with. That's about once a week. And I found that if I let myself get too hungry, if I don't eat, if I miss a meal, it gets worse. So nausea and headaches. I did have nosebleeds. Thank goodness those have stopped for now. And no rashes. I still have some swollen lymph nodes. But they're thinking that if I just stay on the chemo, they can keep it steady. If my blood cells start to rise again to a problematic level, they're going to add another chemotherapy drug to my regimen. And if that doesn't work, then we're probably going to revisit the transplant. But for now, we're going to see if we can just treat it this way. And at first I was very scared because when you go and you're told that your only chance is this operation, and then all of a sudden that operation is taken out from under you, you get scared and you think, well, what's that mean? And I can live with a headache for several days and I feel like I can live with nausea once or twice a week if it means that I can be here with you guys the rest of the time. So spring has taken on a whole new meaning for me. It is definitely a time of rebirth. And I'm so excited that I actually get to put out my garden this year. As soon as I got the news, the plants went into the eggshells. The seeds went into the eggshells. I went out and bought plants and started tilling up the garden and working on my flowers and just, it was like the skies opened up for me again. I was much more hopeful. And everything is I'm noticing things more. You know, this is kind of the blessing of being told that you're sick, is that it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call of really how beautiful life is and the people around you are. And yeah, that's how I've been feeling. So something else I wanted to share with you guys. I did a video called Leukemia Lessons, and I talked about different ways, that I stayed positive. Now, that was during the time when I thought I was not going to make it. And if you're dealing with an illness, like I was, and you guys, I still am. I still have cancer. 70% of my bone marrow is cancer. It's not going to go away. I'm going to have it my entire life, unless, a miracle happens. And, but I'm always going to have to be careful. But I wanted you guys to know that when I prayed to God, I would pray, that I would get better, and I would pray that my disease would go away. Of course, who wouldn't when you're scared like that? But I think really more, well, I know more, I prayed that no matter the outcome, even if I wasn't going to be able to get through this, that I would feel God's comfort with me, and that I would feel Jesus with me, and I wouldn't be as afraid. And I'm going to tell you, I have felt them. I have felt them like I've never felt them in my life, and here's why I think that is. Sorry if I shook the table. People handle things differently. Some people are very private. That's you guys. I'm on YouTube. That's not me. So I immediately told everybody I knew, and asked them if they would pray for me. And they did. They did. Boy, they started putting me in prayer circles that I didn't even know about. That I don't even know who they are. I had people praying for me, and I still do. And I prayed, and I started going back to church. Found a great church, and I've always believed in God. I've always been a Christian. I used to go to church by myself when I was a kid, to the Nazarene church. I used to walk there by myself. So it isn't that I didn't believe, but I didn't practice what I believed in. Which reminds me of a funny story, you guys, that I heard on the radio. So, Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was a mighty Roman soldier. But he was not a nice guy. They had a feudal system back then, basically, and you had to do what they told you to do, or off with your head. And there was a soldier who, it was brought to Alexander the Great's attention. This is a true story. That this soldier kept running away and wouldn't fight. Well, he was brought before Alexander the Great. And, you're expecting him to get his head cut off, right? Or be stabbed to death, something. Because he kept running off. He was a traitor. He was a coward. But for some reason, Alexander the Great asked him, "What is your name?" Kind of like, what is wrong with you? What is your name? And he said, "Alexander." Well, that made him do a double take. And he said, "You either change your name or change your actions." And that always stuck with me, because it reminds me of Christianity. If you say you're a Christian but you don't practice it, then don't say that you're a Christian, right? Quit saying it. If you're not actively seeking God's word and Jesus in your life, and their forgiveness and their love, then don't say you believe in God, because you're not even pursuing them. And that's what God wants us to do. And I'm telling you, it made all the difference in my life. And I'm a changed person. So seek out positive people. seek out God's word. That was another thing, you guys, when I thought I wasn't going to make it. I was reflecting one day and I thought, as you guys know, I love history. I love literature. And I've read so many of the great classics. The Grapes of Wrath, To Kill a Mockingbird, Huck Finn. I've read so many books. I have never read the Bible all the way through. And that's the greatest book that was ever written. And I'd never read it all the way through. And whether you're a Christian or not, you should really take the time to try to read through a book that literally has changed history and continues to change the course of history. So I asked my doctor, what about my way of life? I mean, what should I know about taking care of myself? And because my immune system is so compromised, you guys, you know how when you get sick, like if you would go out and scrape your knee, it's your white blood cells that run on out there and they start fighting any kind of infection. That's a healthy body. What would happen to me if I got a scrape and an infection started? My white blood cells would fight with themselves. They're not going to go try to fight an infection. And it could be fatal. So I have to be diligent, he told me. I have to be diligent about germs, about indoor spaces with lots of people. His words were, a person could have COVID, and a healthy person could have COVID. They don't even know it. It doesn't even affect them, But if they get by you and you get COVID, it could be fatal. So flus, cold, infections of any kind, I have to be, it's almost like I have to almost live in a bubble now, or that is until they get my immune system built back up. And I take lots and lots of vitamins, and I get lots of rest, and I'm really hoping that happens. But in the meantime, if it doesn't, I can't go in indoor places like weddings and things where there's a whole lot of people. Yes, I still have days when I don't feel good, but I'm still working. Still going to work every day, Monday through Friday, unless I absolutely can't. Because I think it's so important, as long as I can, to keep life as normal as I can. And I also want to mention, you guys, that on the days when I do feel good, boy, do I live life to the fullest. Like today, I went to work, came home, my granddaughter's here, we had dinner together, came outside as soon as I could and started playing with my plants, which some people might think is work. For me, it's not. This is fun. This is fun. And came out and talked to you guys and looked at the beautiful leaves and the beautiful trees and the beautiful flowers, and everything's in bloom. And I sure don't take life for granted anymore. I've not become a saint, you guys. I still have days when I get grouchy. But I'm trying to be much more grateful for my health and for my family and for people that have rallied around me and for prayer. And you guys have felt it. So I wanted to thank you so much and tell you that my garden's going out this year. We're going to have so many videos on it and things that we're going to make out of it. And I'm just so grateful. And I'm grateful for all of you guys. And also, too, I wanted to say hi to my new subscribers because I picked up about 5 this week. And I'm so excited about that. I think it was my Dolly Parton cake. It's like I said, who does not love Dolly, right? Who does not love Dolly? So we're going to have to try out her coconut cake next, and we'll see how that tastes. You guys, thank you so much for joining me here today and letting me ramble. It's like therapeutic. I'm out here getting my hands dirty, doing what I love, and I'm talking to my friends, And some of my subscribers I see every week, and they tell me what they think of my videos. And it just means a lot to me. Sure does. So you guys have a great week. Like, subscribe, and share if you feel so inclined. And come back and see me.